Okay, we're going to get started here very shortly and let everyone get successfully logged in here. My name's Chad McDaniel. I am the president and co-founder of Execs in the Know. Really do appreciate our audience's time today and the conversation that we're close to having here. So again, we'll start just in less than a minute, let everyone get successfully logged in. So basically, a lot's been going on, as we all know, since the COVID piece of it. And the conversation today about keeping your customer journey personal amid historic change is probably an understatement of the kind of conversation that we need to have, and we're going to have today. I first of all want to say, LaNae, it's a pleasure to have you, and we're going to make some introductions with Jarrod and LaNae here shortly. It's a pleasure to work with both Jarrod and LaNae. If we could go to the next slide, I'm just going to do a couple of opening items here for our audience. Today's agenda is basically 45 minutes where we're going to have an interactive webinar and some live Q&A. And what I would encourage is as much participation as we can. So please ask as many questions in the chat box or in the question Q&A box, and we'll look forward to getting those answered for you. In regards to Execs in the Know, Jarrod, if we could go to the next slide. Execs in the Know is a corporate CX sharing community. If you're not familiar with us, we are really an advocate of the CX leader like LaNae and many others. There's a number of ways to get involved. You don't have to do this alone. And I encourage you to go to the execsintheknow.com website and all the tremendous resources and information we have available. But we've been having a lot of fun doing this for the last 10 years and have a tremendous group of community members that we're quite proud to be associated with. Jarrod, if you go to the next slide, I just want to say thank you to our corporate advisory board. We absolutely could not do this without their guidance, leadership, and assistance. I just want to say thank you to all the brands and the leaders that really are trying to make a difference into the overall industry, and at the same point making distinct marks, I think, for us as success leaders in our organizations. On the next slide, if you're not a member of our private corporate online community called Know It All, it's a great opportunity to get involved. We have over 500 unique profile members in there. It is 100% corporate private invite, but there are some tremendous conversations taking place and insights 24/7. So feel free to reach out to me, Chad at execsintheknow.com, and I'll be happy to get you more information. If we go to the next slide, hard to believe, but our signature event, the Customer Response Summit, is just a couple of weeks away. It's going to be running, it's a virtual event this year. It's going to be running digitally October 5th through the 7th. We have some amazing brands and speakers. It's no cost to register. I would encourage you, there are some phenomenal educational sessions that are taking place, and I would encourage you to get involved in that upcoming summit. All right, well, enough about us, and let's get to our speakers today. So if we go to the next slide, LaNae and Jarrod, welcome. Make sure you're off mute so we can hear you and you can hear us. But I always like to personalize things a little bit as we start with our speakers. And LaNae, you're a hard one to compete with just because I call you our gold medalist triathlete, world-renowned Ironman accomplishee, internationally domestic. And if you could move for a second and show us all those medals there that you've achieved, but not to embarrass you, but anyhow, great job, LaNae.
Thank you.
I also will say that when we were at the Customer Response Summit recently live back in early March, LaNae, you did a great job presenting. For anyone listening that is not familiar with Vivino, you're going to learn a lot today, but if you like wine also, you should go to the App Store, download the Vivino app, and it's an amazing tool that I'll have LaNae get a little bit more into. Jarrod, it's a pleasure to have you. Jarrod is just a phenomenal leader. TaskUs and the entire team over there have been such great supporters and believers in our movement and effort here at Execs in the Know. Jarrod, it's always phenomenal to work with you with your leadership and knowledge, and welcome. I don't know if you have a factoid that you want to share. Maybe you're Iron Man too, but LaNae's quite it.
No, the factoid I'll give you is that motivating LaNae, if you have a $5 medal for something, LaNae will go through a brick wall for you to get it. So
true.
She's impressive enough for the both of us, I think.
All right, well, let's get started, folks. We've got a lot to talk about here. Jarrod, just for the people in LaNae, if we could just take 30 seconds each, just a little bit about the company, the organization, so people have that set of mind as we get into the conversation. So, Jarrod, let's start with TaskUs.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Chad, for having us. We're a big believer in the Execs in the Know community. It's one of the few events in the industry that we see kind of exceptional value from being a part of. So thank you for having us today and for your team for helping us put this on. TaskUs is we consider ourselves a next generation outsourcing partner. We specialize in digital channels in the customer care space. We're also major players in the content moderation across media platforms, as well as AI operations, so training those machine learning algorithms. We're still learning a lot from a lot of our partners. We have a client base of disruptor technology brands based predominantly out of Silicon Valley and the major markets in North America. We're expanding rapidly globally, so we're excited. For anybody who's interested, we'd love to tell you more about our global footprint and capabilities at TaskUs.com.
Perfect. Well, welcome, Jarrod. Good to have you. Thank you. And LaNae, real quick for the listeners that may not be familiar with Vivino.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot more about some of the specifics, but for those of you that aren't familiar, Vivino is essentially a wine app. We're the largest online wine marketplace in the world with over 12 million wines in our database. So both on the app and then on web, giving users the ability to search, research, and then buy wines from around the globe.
Well, great. And really, it goes without saying to both of you, thank you for spending some time with our community. And I know a lot of people are going to be listening to this post-webinar on demand. So we really appreciate you sharing some leadership insight and case studies here. So, Jarrod, I'm going to turn to you. I know you've got a lot that you want to get into the case study here, so let's go.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Chad. And LaNae, just to start off, thank you so much for participating and doing this with us. You are a champ, as always. For the Execs in the Know community, you'll recall the last time we saw LaNae up on stage, she was presenting in Hollywood. I was joking, Hollywood, Florida, at Chad's CRS event. I was joking that was the last work event I think I went to before the world shut down. Chad got it all in just prior to the planes shutting down and people kind of saying, hey, we're not traveling for business. So I can't believe how long it's been. And LaNae, you've been through a ton since March. So people, if they missed that presentation, a little bit more depth on your background, kind of what you've been through in your career that led you to Vivino. And then, of course, we'd love to know a little bit more about the business context of Vivino to set the stage for some of the topics we're going to discuss today. You mind going through your background in Vivino a little more?
Yeah, absolutely. And March really feels like an eternity ago these days, doesn't it? I actually think not only was it my last business trip, the last time I saw you, Jarrod, was at that event where you were hula dancing for everyone with a coconut. So that's my last memory of you. But I did really love getting to share both Vivino's story at the last Customer Response Summit and definitely happy to be involved again in this new virtual environment. So I've been with Vivino for nearly a year now, leading our global customer experience team. I've been in customer service throughout my career. I actually started on the outsourcing side at a firm working with larger Fortune 500 clients on process improvement projects, mostly to drive call center KPIs from a more consultative approach, and really had to put pen to paper when I moved to San Francisco to join an early stage startup and had to build a customer support team from the ground up, and learned quickly that building a world-class team is definitely easier said than done, but love the challenges that come with it. I actually think one of the most impactful experiences so far in my career was moving back onto the outsourcing side, but this time was working with clients that were more on the high growth Silicon Valley tech companies that were truly revolutionizing their industry, whether that was from rideshare to food delivery to social media giants. And working with them on the CX side, I think is what really solidified my love and fascination of companies that are really trailblazers. And ultimately, that's what really brought me to Vivino. And again, so Vivino, we're a wine app, huge database of wines and a large wine marketplace. And really the problem that Vivino is trying to solve is to remove some of that mystification or confusion that comes with wine for the average consumer. Whether you're selecting a wine off of a menu at a restaurant or you're standing in front of a wall of options, how do you really choose which wine? Some people go with the most expensive wine, you go with the oldest vintage, or sometimes you just go with a bottle that has the coolest label. No shame, I've done it before, beautiful bottles, they just stick out. But it's really confusing. Picking a wine is confusing. And so it was built to make wine easy. So through our image recognition technology, shoppers can scan a wine label and in seconds get tons of information about that wine. Everything from wine type to region to the grape to taste characteristics and even food pairings, along with user ratings and reviews from across the globe. And then have the ability to find the wine that really fits their personal profile. And finally, really over the past few years, we've been hyper-focused on streamlining that digital wine buying process by actually allowing users to not only scan and research the wines, but now be able to buy it directly from the Vivino app in only 2 clicks, and having access to wines from Portugal, from France, from Napa, wherever it is, with over 500 retailers in our marketplace. So really just opening up access to different wines and being able to both choose them and then actually be able to buy them. And our growth over those past 10 years, we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary in 2020, but the growth truly has been phenomenal. We were founded in 2010, and in those first 5 years, we really spent building out that wine database that invited users to scan, take pictures of the wine labels, rate them on a 5-star system, and share reviews that other people could access. Those first 5 years, it took that full 5 years just to reach our first 100 million scans. So it took quite a while to build up that database and get users on the app. But at the end of 2019, we actually celebrated a huge milestone for Vivino with 1 billion scans at the very end of 2019.
Wow.
And that next 100 million to get from 1 billion to 1.1 billion, what took 5 years back then, it took us 2 months to get to that next 100 million. And fast forward to today, we have a community of almost 46 million users that are contributing to wine ratings and tasting notes, and over 200 million ratings on our platform. So I can only imagine what those numbers are going to be 10 years from now.
I mean, that is really amazing. I'm excited for you, having landed at Vivino and having so much fun. Wine's one of those things that can be intimidating. As a guy who has to host a bunch of dinners like Chad does, it can be intimidating. So to have Vivino as your friend to help you pick the wine, it's like having your own little personal sommelier. I can see the draw from people. And then obviously the ability to, if you like something, to order it simply. That's amazing. So you talking there about the growth. I mean, you're basically saying that you're at a clip of adding 50 million users a month recently, and that number is only going to get worse. So that's amazing. Between, March when we saw you last and the pandemic, what's changed for Vivino that, in order to support that growth?
Oh, I mean, I know we use the word unprecedented often to describe the last 6 months or to describe 2020 in general, but I'd say the growth surge that we've seen since March and this year throughout the pandemic truly has been unprecedented. Alcohol was one of the fastest growing categories in e-commerce pandemic. From March through June, online sales of alcohol grew over 300%, which is crazy. And at Vivino specifically, we saw in April a 157% year-over-year growth in April, and then another 140% in May. And what's really interesting about that is spring is traditionally for Vivino when sales really start to slow. Coming out of the holiday period, we normally see it go down a little bit. So seeing that month-over-month growth really wasn't incredible. And so what we've really tried to focus on was just continuing to double down on our user-driven ratings and having more personalization tools and features within our app. And even before COVID-19, 95% of our user growth has been organic, and it really has been what's enabled us to reach almost 4 times the number of app downloads versus all of our major competitors combined. I think what the pandemic sort of brought was just this shift in behavior too, I think, where people are getting more comfortable about ordering wine or ordering in general and having stuff delivered to their home, when normally I think that didn't appeal to all the masses. Some people just prefer going into a store, being able to touch and feel something before they buy it. But I think truly not just at Vivino, but across multiple industries, we're seeing people just be a lot more comfortable ordering. And we haven't really seen that growth stop the way that we thought it would as we move into this more new normal, as we call it. We've seen that sustained growth, and we really believe that there's been this shift and that will sustain it.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that across a number of different clients, especially with big online business presences. It's almost like the best free marketing period you've ever seen, because people will be trying stuff they wouldn't have had to try before. You know, we've seen it a lot in grocery delivery, food delivery, you know, obviously in online purchasing in a number of places they just didn't have to before. So hopefully, you know, that's a great thing for some businesses. And then in others, I think you're seeing them pivot, right? They're saying, okay, now our online business has to take more than we ever expected. For a brand like Vivino, what were some of the challenges you faced responding to that kind of growth and change during the pandemic?
Well, how much time do we have?
We have 40 minutes.
I mean, I know that I'm not alone when I say that this year has definitely been a challenge, primarily because there was no playbook on how to respond to COVID-19. There still really isn't a playbook on exactly what we should expect going into 2021. So we had to throw all of our plans out the window a little bit and figure things out almost on a day-to-day basis. And so while the growth that we saw at Vivino was obviously fantastic, but it certainly brought with it several operational challenges. When the worldwide quarantine mandates really started, orders came in like a tidal wave. And not only were many of our merchants, not just in the US, but globally, just unprepared for that sudden level of demand that was coming at them from the marketplace. In addition to that, several mini warehouses across Europe, North America, and Asia were being shut down as well. Right. And delivery couriers were also experiencing delays. So it was almost this kind of perfect storm where demand was there and it was growing, but it was also really difficult to meet it. And from the customer support and customer experience side, not only were we seeing our contact volume increase purely as a result of the increased orders, But to add on top of that, the fulfillment challenges and delays, we were inundated with calls and emails from our merchants, from our customers about everything you could think of, lack of inventory, delays, whatever it was. And within not even 2 weeks, our customer and merchant support response times had jumped up to 5 days getting back to people because of the amount of volume. Our customer satisfaction scores tanked. And it there felt almost like being in quicksand, where we were doing everything to try to pull ourselves out of it, but just sort of kept sinking further. And both of our contact centers, meanwhile, we have centers both in Lisbon and in Manila. They were also being ordered to shut down with less than 48 hours notice. So we were trying to move all of our agents to a work from home model, trying to get them all the equipment over to their houses while simultaneously trying to figure out how are we going to increase our staffing in that environment. And if that wasn't stressful enough, I don't think we had talked about this earlier in prepping, but I also happened to get COVID-19 when all of this was going on. So I was terribly sick. I was in bed taking calls from bed. And I actually texted you, Jarrod, and I think my text just said, I need help. So TaskUs really showed up at that period of time. I think because we needed staff so quickly and we weren't going to be able to get it with the vendors we were already working with, I think we got a temporary contract signed within maybe 72 hours, and the team had already started recruiting, I think, before the ink had even dried on that. And probably 45 days later, we had already had our first of 4 waves of new hires with TaskUs. I think it was the fastest launch we've ever done, and certainly the first time doing it remotely.
Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy time for providers too, right? We had a couple of things going in our favor that allowed us to help you and a number of other brands. You know, one, we're 100% cloud-based systems, so we were able to pivot to work from home a little bit faster. We had the logistics challenges that everybody did, bandwidth, especially in the Philippines and India. But we were probably more prepared than others. And the other thing that was fortunate for you in this case is there were some businesses that were really hurting, right? And so they were asking for scale downs quickly. Especially in the brick and mortar retail space. That was where we probably saw the most impact. So in your case, we were super lucky to have a team that, that was available for you, that fit the profile perfectly. We were able to pivot, but I think, I know a lot of people didn't have that same experience, and we're lucky. You want to talk about for a second what it's like to stand up a BPO without being able to go to the site and meet the team or send a trainer? How did that go for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was a struggle. I think I was most disappointed that we weren't able to actually travel and visit the sites. I think we actually have a couple pictures of the TaskUs site on here. Oh, there we go. It's there. Gorgeous sites. I visited this one a few different times in the past with different companies, but yeah, it was hard not to get to build that connection with our frontline staff from the very beginning. A lot of the training materials that my team would normally do with our other European vendors, they had to completely restructure them to work in a virtual environment. So a lot of work on both sides went into it. But I think one of the best and I think unexpected things was normally when we're launching a new vendor, we'll have a big launch party. It was going to be impossible to do that at the actual site. So the TaskUs team had actually put together a whole virtual party. It was a 2-hour party. They had sent wine bottles to all of our agents' homes. And we actually did a full-on Zoom party with games and introductions and things like that. I think what actually shocked me most was we had several games about wine knowledge, and only about this team would have only been maybe 4 or 5 weeks in, and I was I think they knew more about wine and wine styles than I did, so they put me to those games, but you could really tell that they were passionate and excited to be involved, both everything, the morale and all of that, which can be a challenge when you're virtual. I think TaskUs and Vivino, that partnership really helped people just feel like they were part of something and still being able to get excited even with everything else that was going on around us.
Well, it certainly was true that the team was excited to support Vivino. That was a brand they were, that they probably didn't have a ton of exposure to in the Philippines, but they were like, wine, we get wine. So that always helps with employee engagement. I will say you launched at an interesting time also where there were a lot of frontline workers in our industry who were very scared for their jobs, right? So the fact that we were able to get them up and working from home, and the fact that great brands like you were still looking for support, that was a good thing at that time. I think we'll face different challenges if this stays remote for a long time. It's certainly a different level of stress and challenge on the frontliners, but that was a good experience. I'm glad you had that good experience.
Yes.
And just because we know about you, you are a glutton for punishment and change. You decided, why not just go ahead and change the entire tool set we give the frontline at the same time? Do you want to talk about that change for a second and how you manage that?
Yeah, I actually think that I'd referenced this in Hollywood in March, that we were potentially looking at other tools that we could use to gather greater data. So we were just in the process of building that out when everything else happened. So that was kind of running in parallel with all of these other changes. So we figured, hey, let's just go big. We're already changing how we work. Why not change the tools that we're working with as well? But the main reason, I think, for me, when in looking at system and tools that we use on the customer support side, usually does start with data. How powerful is a tool of being able to capture the type of data that will give us insight into areas of improvement, not just from the customer side, but also from the agent perspective as well, having a good experience working with those tools. And also a big one for us was on the customer support and customer experience side. It includes both the support for our customers as well as for our merchants. But our operations teams in each of our local markets, they're also engaging on a pretty regular basis with our merchants and warehouses as well. And so we wanted a tool that really could be centralized across multiple teams, so we could really start to see sort of that journey that our merchants as well as our customers have, and the different touch points that they have with different groups in our company. And so by having that one tool that multiple teams were in, all the way from sales to CX to operations, we now feel like we have a better 360 view of who all has this merchant talked to, who are the customers that have been impacted by their orders. And that was really the main reason for looking for another tool, was just centralizing it. And so far that's been a blessing for us.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. You mentioned in there the kind of the power of data, and the team on the ground calls you the data queen. And this is one of the things we love about you, and we've been lucky enough to work with you a couple different times. How are you using data now at Vivino? And are there kind of new approaches there you're exploring?
Well, I do love data. Can't manage what you don't measure, right? I think there are so many sources of rich data to get better insight on experience. So what we're doing well and where we're falling short. And so we focus a lot on data from the customer support team. So we look at things like, what are primary contact drivers? What are the most common order-related issues that seem to come up both from merchants as well as customers, customer satisfaction scores and how they correlate to different issues. We also get a lot of really great feedback from the more VOC, voice of customer side through NPS surveys. We do a lot of user feedback surveys, post-purchase, post-delivery. We get a lot of really great data. And to supplement that, we also do a lot of focus groups, as you know, with TaskUs, with our frontline staff, to be able to understand what they're seeing as areas of opportunity and what are some of those pain points that they see from customer verbatims, which sometimes you can't just capture with a number somewhere. And so I think the TaskUs team has done a phenomenal job really supplementing that analysis with agent feedback and being able to really create a picture of what are these experiences our customers and merchants are having and what can we do to improve it. Awesome. The limitation or challenge that I think sometimes I had with only using those sources of data is that normally that's really only reflecting somewhat small percentage of your overall customers and the overall orders that we see. So it's a snapshot, but potentially not fully comprehensive of what's going across all of your orders or all of your customers. And so what we wanted to do is to build more of a binary measurement of, did our customer get exactly what they ordered at the right time with no issues? And I think we actually have a slide for that with a quick overview somewhere, Jarrod.
Would you like to see the definition? You call it perfect order rate, yes?
Perfect order rate, yes. There we go. So what we essentially wanted was a way that we could define, what does Vivino consider a perfect order, where everything goes well without a hitch. Engineers like to call it the happy path. So from the time a customer presses the buy button, all the way to the time that they get their order delivered, right, did everything go well? So the high level definition of the perfect order is whether the customer got exactly what they ordered without any delays, with end-to-end communication about their order status and what was going on with it, and no need to interact with anyone at Vivino, not having to contact or be contacted by the customer support team. And all of that criteria must be true for us to consider that order to be perfect. And the objective of this really is to be able to understand throughout that order fulfillment and that journey that the customer is having, where are those areas of friction and what is the root cause of them? So we know what to go in and say, hey, all of these orders seem to be having this issue. What can we do to that issue, which we know tends to do customer support contacts and lower NPS and things like that. So this was just another data source where we could look at 100% of our orders and know what percentage of them had one or more of these issues. And to be able to put it in visual, I think a little bit more, what some of the criteria that we look at for a order to be considered perfect. So we're looking at things like, these are 6 of them. We have a total of 9. But we're looking at things like, was the order canceled by the merchant, where we tend to, when an order gets canceled, we have to move it to another merchant, so it causes delays and things like that. Was the order modified post-purchase and post-delivery? Normally, this is referring to things like there was a refund or something applied because the bottles broke in transit, or the user got the wrong wine, so they need to be compensated. We look at whether all of the orders, the merchants and the warehouses, whether they provided us a tracking link, because without the tracking link, it means that customers have no idea where their order is, and then they tend to reach out, or we also deal with complaints about merchants, the courier coming by to drop off an order, but you're not home. And for wine orders, you have to actually sign for them, so it's important to be home. And then the last three that we'll look at or focus on here too is, did we effectively send the customer all of those notifications and updates about their order, when it was shipped, when it's out for delivery, just to make sure that customers feel confident in where their order is at and what the status is. And then finally, and probably one of the most important to customers, is whether or not the order was actually delivered on time or late. And then finally, whether we had to handle any customer support contact with them, because we do know that when users have to reach out to customer support, even when they have a great experience and great customer satisfaction, we know that it impacts retention, and we try to limit the amount of friction that would cause a contact. So I know that was long-winded explanation of it, but yeah, Chad.
Yeah, let me jump in here, and Jarrod, LaNae, thank you, and I just want to say to Mike and Bob in California, a couple of our big brand partners, I know this will probably be on your mind, is the data dilemma and the whole data piece. And LaNae, you did a great job of giving us an idea of a case study of measurement with the perfect order rate. Jarrod, what I want to ask you is, when we think of data measurement overall, that means many different things, obviously, to different brands, depending on a number of things, data lakes and data insights and so forth. Jarrod, how are you guys working with partners or the clients to really get rich insight, predicting intent, trying to better understand frictionless customer effort? You know, it's a big topic, I get that, but is there some advice, suggestions, or any particular blocking points that you're seeing, or what advice would you have for some of our audience here when it comes to that topic?
Yeah, I mean, in general, Chad, we think of this a little bit like LaNae just described. If you're using survey data alone as your source of, am I meeting customer expectations and satisfaction, the sample set, for the most part, at least for the majority of brands that I've ever worked with, is just too small. So you've got to find ways to use kind of true data science. And I don't mean to make that all, highfalutin, but I think you've got to find ways to get to more statistically relevant sets of data, and then put that alongside your survey data and your verbatims to get to true root cause. So, LaNae, we consider this sort of a best practice, right? You better have a customer journey map where you've identified your primary friction points. I think one of the challenges is, can you actually measure each of these steps? That's really hard for a lot of brands. And then, yes, your survey data is super important, gives you verbatims, gives you directional information, but then what other data sources can you have? We also believe in trying to, if you can, aggregate third-party data. So what's social data saying about you? What's, I don't know if this is relevant in your case, for Vivino, but our product scoring and ratings and online sources, matching what you're seeing internally. In some cases, sales data. You may see CSAT data around one merchant that says one thing in your environment, right, LaNae? But you might have different sales data or expectations that somehow these two things are not correlating. So how do you draw them together? The other thing I think is super interesting, I don't know how you handle it, LaNae, but to be specific on your example, you could have someone give you a great satisfaction rating because you fixed a step in the process, but that might mask the fact that you fixed something like the order didn't show up on time, so you gave a credit and then you expedited the second. So in this case, just to be clear about your example, that's a failure on perfect order rate, even though you got a 10 or something, right?
Correct, because also for every one person that does actually contact support or leave a review on NPS about an issue, there were 10 others that didn't. And so this is a way of We know that some of these issues drive dissatisfaction, drive lower NPS scores, but this gives us an overall picture, and we are actually able to track each of these. So we work with both our business intelligence as well as our engineering team to be able to measure all of these. We can narrow it down on a country level and all the way down to a merchant level, so that then our operations account management team can work with those merchants to understand, why aren't you providing tracking links? Why are all of your orders showing up late? And that's the data that's just so critical and really fixing the root cause that then drives customer contacts. So it's been huge for us.
Yeah, and just to build on that, Chad, something LaNae mentioned earlier that I think is part of this ecosystem, frontline insights that can help you get to root cause and potential solutions can really accelerate your ability to deploy fixes to things that are broken in the system. And we try to do a really good job of pulling that out in monthly business reviews and quarterly business reviews in our governance process. But the other thing we do, and I think every organization can do this in some way, is putting that quality and CSAT kind of team right next to data science or business intelligence, so that you're really trying to take the output of quality and survey data and drive it to root cause. It's so always surprising to me the number of clients who, once you've been running an environment long enough, you sort of just look at the number. Am I 94 or above on my CSAT or something? And it's hard to squeeze that last percentage. So getting that cycle of feedback from the front line, from your survey data, your other customer journey friction points, and then putting it back into action, I think that's part of the magic.
Let me add one more point, if I may, and again, I'll just be mindful of time here, folks. And Michael in LA, I really trust your opinion when it comes to some of this. So if you want to jump in the chat section and give me your thoughts to where you guys stand on the data perspective and how you're migrating there. LaNae, for clarification, what are the channels you currently support at Vivino? If I'm a consumer, how do I engage with you guys, just for clarification quickly?
Phone, email, and in-app chat, web chat.
What's the majority channel for you?
In-app chat from customers and phone from our merchants.
Okay. And I would encourage, as I said at the beginning, to all of our listeners here, if you don't have the Vivino app, you should download it and try it. It's fun. Take a screenshot of the wine and you give us recommendations, and then see how that chat function works. We're going to put you to the test, LaNae, and see how that service support goes. Jarrod, this question is for you, is that quickly, I want to get this in here. During COVID, all rules of normal went to the wayside, as we know. Yeah. We heard a lot of our brand partners on the community had to shut channels down for a variety of reasons. Could have been the resource issues. It could have been whatever, maybe shifting resources, reshifting priorities. And, I was always questioning, how are we maintaining customer consistency? How are we maintaining reduced customer effort when we're shutting channels down, or we have to shut channels down? My question to you is, do you have any perspective or just general guidance in that? I hope some of the channel shifting or channel changing was sort of temporary to get us through, and things will get back to normal. But my question to you is, what's your reflection on that?
Yeah, so first of all, we observed exactly the same thing you did. We saw our clients shutting down channels for multiple reasons. In some cases, they couldn't get enough frontline agents available to satisfy demand when they had their online channels going bonkers. In other cases, it was simply a demand thing. Maybe their online business was getting flooded, and so they went to non-live channels or asynchronous channels in order to get just to try to handle the volume with some semblance of service level. In most cases, it was voice getting shut off. That's what we witnessed. My perspective, and I think our advice to brands, is to say, you've got to get back to basics and fundamentals now. Most of the volume fluctuations and agent availability is relatively stable at this point. And you've got to get ready for what is your new customer, if they are new maybe, But what are they looking for? And as always, we need to meet those customers in the channel in which they choose to operate. And so you've got to come up with a channel strategy and then a demand and supply strategy to put people in those channels to satisfy. This was one of the last questions I was going to ask LaNae, but I think it's something that every brand's going to face now. No one knows what this holiday season is going to look like. Everybody's planned for historical peaks and surges a bit over holiday season, but we really have no real data to predict what this is going to look like. And so I think people have to think long and hard about their channel strategies and total support strategies right now going into peak. LaNae, how are you thinking about that challenge?
Yeah, Q4 and the holidays is our biggest peak season for Vivino. And in the past, normally we have had seasonal staffing where we brought them on and then tend to ramp down going into spring. Luckily, with everything that happened with COVID-19, we did increase our staff to levels that could handle that increased volume. And even as we saw the volume drop and get back to normal levels going into the holiday, we made the decision to just keep the staffing levels there and flat so that for our Q4, even if we see those levels jump up again, as we know that they we'll still have enough staff to cover for them. I still think, though, the biggest challenge comes back to the virtual environment and how you keep agents motivated and train on a lot of new processes and different things that are coming out. For us in Q4 globally, we do a lot of different marketing campaigns and things like that agents need to be aware of so that when customers have issues, they can actually react to those. And so we've started very early on deciding, are we going to be closed on the holidays? What messaging do we need in our app to set expectations early on with customers? We've also proactively worked with our merchants and warehouses to understand if they expect delays or shutdowns. So I think really the biggest change for us was just we started planning for the holidays already back in August of this month, rather than historically we could just add staff and kind of be fine. But we're trying to prepare for worst case, but also best case. More orders is fantastic for us, but from the customer support side, always kind of looking at, what's the flip side of that, and how are we going to plan for the unknown?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting to the point in this year where clients are in making their final decisions, right? How much cost can they absorb? What do they think their peak and kind of low over holidays will be? One piece of advice, Chad, for all of those LaNaes out there is be as transparent as possible with your partner, and they should be coming to you with ideas for how to satisfy demand surges on certain days, because it's a very hard time to hire in most of the markets where outsourcing is prevalent. And it's going to be hard to get those teammates to proficiency quickly to handle complex order challenges. So you need to think about your training plans, your intraday and daily spikes and how you handle those. And, just be transparent. If you're going to have to probably scale those down in February, March, try to work with your partner on that stuff, because it makes it easy to take care of the frontline people if we just know those things in advance.
Jarrod, we've got about 10 minutes, and I definitely want to get some questions in here and make sure we have that. Bob Cicito in California, if you could jump in on the group chat, I'd love to get your perspective. Michael, thank you, and I'll share these comments here shortly. Anyone else that's got some questions or whatever, please jump in the group chat, and we'll get them to there. So time always goes so fast, Jarrod, and there's so many lessons learned, and I guess if there was kind of one advice or whatever, maybe we get to that, but is there anything that from the case study that you two need to wrap up before we get into some Q&A?
I don't know about the case study in particular. I guess two messages I'm trying to leave with our clients when I speak with them is that employee engagement is going to be different for the next 6 to 12 months, because there'll be a much higher percentage, we think, for at least 12 months working remote. That is not the ideal work environment for frontliners, not for every frontliner. Some people are perfectly happy with it. But there's been a reason that we came to the center for the buzz, for the amenities, for the leadership, for the oversight, for the support. And so you're really going to have to think about upping your SME and team leader support ratios potentially. I know that has cost implications, but frontliners are expressing concern now about their ability to get support from somebody when they need it. And that's going to get fast and furious as we get into November and December. So we have to be prepared for it. You're also, for the first part of the pandemic, we saw crazy, show rates, low absenteeism, almost zero attrition. That's going to start to change and get back to something closer to normal here in Q4. So everybody's got to be prepared for that. And then the last thing is tools, right? To be looking at cloud-based tool sets to improve your agility. I think we learned from a lot of companies who were ready for that in March, April. They were able to thrive and plan and execute. For those who didn't have those tool sets, including, even some competitors, really, really struggled, and it took much longer to get up and running than wanted. So those are the two things, thinking about employee engagement into the new normal and advancing tool sets.
Any last words, LaNae, on your side?
I would just echo the first point. I think first and foremost, it's empathy. Empathy for your employees, for your partners, and understanding what they're dealing with at home and how you motivate and support them. To Jarrod's point, we did actually improve our ratios of both the team leads as well as quality analysts, so that our frontline staff was getting a lot more support. And then also empathy for your customers and users, and understanding, again, the environment that we live in and what everyone's experiencing is different, and just being really sensitive to that in your positioning, your branding, your marketing, your customer service. That's most critical for me, empathy.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And just a couple of things and on some comments. Julie from South Africa, it's a pleasure to have you. I'd love to get your comments in the group chat. Thomas Siebert, always trust your opinions. Please jump in. Again, this is a community of execs in the know. We share ideas and various pain points and things that are on our minds. So love to get some experts' opinions to what we've been discussing here today. What I do know is this, LaNae, is that everyone that listens to this is going to download the app. We're going to drink more wine at some point. And if we have any experience issues or service issues, we know who to call now. And her name is LaNae. So all good. But thank you so much for your time and your case study, and Jarrod, also the insight. So let's get into some questions and some comments here quickly if we have. And LaNae, I guess real quick, I'll throw this question to you. What's different about Vivino from the other hyper-growth brands you worked at, like Indeed and HomeJoy? So I guess culture, I get that, but is there anything particular that's different?
I think what really has set Vivino apart, and it gets a little bit hard to compare it, I guess, specifically to some of the other industries, but I think where we've really been able to excel is with the personalization based on data. So not just being a marketplace where you can come in, do a search, and find a wine that you already know you like, but from your scans, from wines that you've engaged with or rated, setting your own profile of wines that you've liked or not liked in the past, we can actually completely customize what you see when you open your app, and those main wines on your landing page are going to be completely different than what I see, than what Jarrod sees. And I think that data and just the user-generated ratings and reviews that create that personalized experience has been really the secret sauce for Vivino, and why I think we've been able to continue to get that level of user acquisition without spending a lot of marketing dollars. And I think it's really hard to do. I know a lot of companies, Netflix always comes out. We've been referred to as the Netflix of wine. And we're pretty soon actually going to be launching a similar rating in terms of how likely do we think that you are going to like this wine, kind of like a matching thing. But that would be my answer. Personalization. When I think of Vivino, I think personalized. Vivino can tell me what wines I like, and it is scary how often they are accurate. So I spend a lot of money at Vivino for wine, in addition to our gifts.
You're increasing all of our spend wallet share. Okay, I've got a couple of questions here. Jarrod and Michael in LA, one of our community members, thank you for today. First of all, Michael wanted to say to you, Jarrod, that what you've been saying rings very true, that we need to be transparent with our partners. It makes, that relationship, it's a true partnership, more so than ever. And we do that. So Michael, for an example, is on the opposite spectrum from Vivino in the sense of that he's working in the live events business at, like, let's say Ticket Nation, Adam Tickets, movie tickets specifically. Michael, we feel for you. But, where they've seen business completely shutter and now they're making a slowly comeback. And Michael's not alone in some of that. So in that sort of change, transparency that's taking place, there are probably opportunities that we can look to engage our consumers, our loyal fans, and other things like that. Jarrod, have you been working with anyone that have had the opposite effect and helping them reconnect and repersonalize to their consumers?
Yeah, so we are, lucky enough to have a couple of the coolest event ticketing apps as clients, and they went through massive pain. And what was really hard for us is there was some impact at those brands. There's public information out there about Airbnb and their kind of big layoff. They had to do major cost controls internally. So, one of the things we had to do was, and, the lawyers and my CEO will deny me saying this, but sometimes you have to throw out the contract and have a discussion about what is reality. And for those brands, we really tried to balance, how do we keep a core team in place of solid people, because you can't lose that talent, and then what could we provision them to help you with your most complex problems or opportunities, like engaging your top segments, your top tier loyalty group, because when business comes back, and we know most of these businesses are going to come back, especially the ones that are online, like the event ticketing firms. You're going to need that talent and those people with experience to be able to help you scale and scale quickly. Because we also saw some weird stuff in the ride sharing and scooter businesses where full markets locked down like 100%, and then all of a sudden markets would open back up. And they were looking around going, I need 50 people like now again. And it's very difficult as a partner to just say, oh, I'm trying to be a good friend to you. I moved your 50 people off, and now I got to go to that client I gave them to and say, oh, sorry, if I could just have all those already trained people back, that'd be fantastic. It just doesn't, work that way. We got to work together. So, I think it's like we're saying, you got to really be transparent. You got to collaborate. And then the other challenge I think CX leaders have is to convince their management that you still need to have a core team on both in-house and potentially outsourced, ready to go in the event you got to scale, right?
And maybe we could get Tom and you to just brainstorm afterwards and just share some ideas. But excuse me, with Michael.
Yeah.
Michael, keep doing what you're doing. You do a great job in our space. 30 seconds or less, folks, just on a couple rapid fires here. Thomas, thank you again. Enjoyed you in our community over the years. Thomas is saying to you, LaNae, enjoying the presentation, what is your biggest operating concern in the next 1 to 3 months? Reference agent performance versus customer expectation aside from holiday volumes.
Yeah, I would say it's fulfilling their expectations. I think even in the holidays, customer expectations are really high because they have family events and things like that. And so for me, it's actually working directly with our merchants and partners to make sure that perfect order rate, great order fulfillment, so that agents are actually have the data and are empowered to create those experiences and actually find solutions for those customers. It'll be a challenge, but I'm excited.
I think that's really true too. It's shocking to me how in some of the food delivery businesses, how low the CSAT scores are right now. And I feel like the clients, the customers have very little empathy for that driver who's trying to do it, the restaurant who's barely open. I mean, it's tough.
So let me say this. I want to first of all say thank you to all of our live listeners today. If you continue to have questions from here, just reach out to chat@execsno.com. Happy to connect you with all sorts of people with similar ideas, needs, issues, and more to do that. If you happen to be listening to this webinar post-demand, again, if you have questions, I know we're going to have a lot of people listening after the live broadcast, which is taking place. Again, just reach out to me, chat@execsno.com. I'll leave on this note, God bless everyone in the sense of I know how hard you're all working right now in these determined times. You're not alone. Stay connected. The need for conversation has been greater than ever that I've seen in the last 15 years running this community. So stay close, stay connected. We're so fortunate to have people like Jarrod, LaNae, and many others in our community. I just can't say thank you enough. But on behalf of Execs to Know, I know we're out of time. Thank you, LaNae. Thank you, Jarrod. And this will now conclude today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, LaNae. Thanks, Chad.
Okay, bye-bye.